and it means covered in clouds or veiled in clouds, meaning for all the word of trees, meaning cloud. High literally means being pressed together. So this is also part of my journey when I left my place bare feet, because I went there also because it was a very sacred experience, a pilgrimage of sorts, and I wanted, and they looked at me saying, "Why are you bare feet?" And they gave me the nickname Gûkhoeb. So a lot of people ask me what's my name, and part of my name, I say I have a slave name, which is Bradley van Sitters. But I also have a cultural name, and in my cultural name was the name that the Nama people gave me. It was, and they told me the name of Cape Town. So I also used that within my identity as Gûkhoeb. So that's a little bit of my journey, and I'm taking a little bit of detour on the path, and I hope the next speaker will touch on the Berlin conference, because I really wanted to speak a little bit more about the battle of Woodstock Beach, and also a little bit more on the 1510, 1st of March. It was a Friday when it happened, that day on a Friday. So when I went to Namibia, I was also privileged to meet Gaeb who was a descendant of Mansep, the great Mansep, who was under all Namibian money, and he was a great fighter for the Nama people, resisting German imperialism. So when Hendrik Witbooi died, the year after I was there, in 2009, because I went in 2008, I went for his funeral. And I was quite struck that if I didn't go in 2008, I would have missed the opportunity of meeting him. So in 2009, when I went there again, his wife called me aside, and this was sort of very unprotocol. She called me aside into a room, and she, without saying a word, she took out a small box, a coffin box, and in there she had a flag, and she took out an Ethiopian flag with a lion on it, and it echoed what her husband told me when he was alive the year before, that in the time of their great-grandfathers, there were emissaries that came down from Ethiopia to the Nama people, to the Xhosa, and they, in a way, were speaking about all contacts they had also with the Nama people this side. So the flag was almost a testimony of that experience, of that encounter. And it actually also connected the stories of the South and also the East Africa very beautifully together. And I was also quite moved while she showed me this flag of Ethiopia. And later on, it dawned on me when I looked at the similarity of the special importance of the 1st of March, what's in this year in the South, and also what it is in Ethiopia. So the 1st of March, I made a few notes, so I'll be reading from my notes. I wanted to direct my conversation also in a way that could also add value to your listening experience. So, yeah, we have also quite esteemed visitors. I can still write this book. Okay. All right. So I'll go through my notes, and I actually have to admit that some of the notes are also found from the Honorable Mr. Practitioner, who was also quite vastly knowledgeable on this topic, and also in his own unpacking of our histories. And I like the word histories to unpack that, and also counter the historic version in a very almost deliberate way. So I deliberately asked Zano if he can remember what type of alcohol was the Viceroy, because that was for me, and because of the vacuum that we have, especially on the Cape Flats, without a rite of passage for young men or for women also. One of the significant moments in a youngster's life is that moment when they drink alcohol as a way of, it's a way of them that they also, it's a very, nowadays, a contemporary way of young boys to act out almost a way of a rite of passage for themselves by drinking themselves. So Viceroy was one of the alcohol that I remember. And in coming from a history of the dop system, and then also how arak was given to young children who was also enslaved to subdue them, to pacify them in a way also. And also giving the deep history of a dop system in our country. My father came from the Franschhoek area, where that was also taking place heavily. He himself fell prey to alcoholism. So for me, at a young age, alcohol took a very serious role. So I wanted to do as much as possible to stay away from it. That's why I also opted the pathway of the Rastafari. Within Rastafari, we stay away from strong liquor. And that was one of the tenets, one of the things that really spoke to me. And then, so in my awakening, that is also the journey that I embarked on, to stay away from alcohol. So Viceroy was one of the liquor that we enjoyed as a youngster. And acting out some form of rite of passage in my high school days, also using that Viceroy to drink myself too stupid. And that name stuck to me, Viceroy. So I later on found out that Francisco de Almeida, he was in fact the first Viceroy of India. And that really rang a bell for me, that this Francisco de Almeida that we're speaking of, it was the time of probably the first known battle in South African history, Southern African history, and also accounted for the biggest loss of European lives at the time in Southern Africa also. Him and 60 plus of his compatriots, including 11 of his captains, was massacred here. So for me, why was there such a silence about it? Today, his burial, site of burial, is actually completely unheralded. And I was also quite moved a little bit, and I want to finish with it, with how a lot of these memories of the past, even recent past, has also been like uncomfortably forgotten. So his site today, I'm going to speak a little bit about his site, but it's actually found on a disused railway yard that is about 1 kilometer inland and actually not far from where we are today, here at the castle. And I like to call it not a castle but a military fort. But castle has some reverence, some idea of it, some excellence around it. And for me this is really much a military fort. And it's still very militarized today because you still have soldiers that are found in this complex. So amidst all the rusting train tracks that in a way really trace the old shoreline of the old Cape, you'll find also today in this industrial shed. It's a red, low roofed shed, and underneath is the site where Francisco de Almeida and his compatriots fell. So the site is also, it's built over. So for me that was also quite interesting. So matching the historical record, proximity to the Liesbeek and the river, and also the Black River Canal, this became and is the first site of a recorded known battle in Southern Africa. So